Hi, my name is Amy Pechacek, and I'm here to talk to you today about effective communication using technology. It's 2016. If we look around, millions of people are using computers, text messaging, cell phones, fax, email, instant messaging, and many other devices. With the advancement of technology, we've created a global society which has benefited our communications greatly. With the appropriate use of technology, we can have effective communications. First, what you need to do is determine your purpose of your message. Who's it for? Why are you sending it? And what is the purpose? And then you need to consider, is it personal or confidential? Is it a message for your friends, your family? Is it friendly or is it confidential? Is it work related? Is it for doctors or has confidential information? And then after that, you need to consider, is it a positive influence or a negative influence? Is it a happy message or is it a sad message? Is it giving a negative message? Then you always need to remember to have precautions that guarantee your safety. There are millions of people that hack into emails and get into cell phones and get your records and personal confidential information. Lastly, technology is used to enhance learning and productivity. As far as work goes, you can either send a quick email or quick text, or you can go make a meeting or write a letter, and it takes a lot longer. Or you can, as far as learning, millions of colleges are using computers, and even in schools nowadays for your little children, they have the laptops and tablets that enhance their learning, and you can be really creative with it. There are 4 types of communications. The 4 main types of communications are verbal, nonverbal, written, and visual. The first one is verbal. Obviously that's auditory, that's speaking and using your voice. I'm going to be talking about cell phone use and voicemail as an example of verbal. And then there's nonverbal, which is gestures, body language, appearance, and many others examples that I'm going to go into further later. There's written. Written is anything that is written on paper. So email or texting would be good examples of that. And then lastly, there's visual. It's not as common to see visual, but it is a wide use of communication. Cell and voicemail. First off, you always remember to use safety. Nowadays, people are on their cell phones all the time, and you have to be careful when driving, when watching little children, and then it's also safety as far as like airplanes, and it's actually illegal. And then so you always have to remember to use safety and precautions when using your cell phone. The next is respect for others. Everybody's always ran into or heard of people who are talking really loudly on their cell phone in the stores or in the office, and everybody knows their conversation. And so you always need to be respectful and think about the other people around you and what you're talking about, and use an inside voice. And then cell phones, when you're talking on a cell phone, is a lot less likely for misunderstandings. It's a lot less likely for people to interpret things differently because they can hear you and they can hear your tone of your voice and have a little bit more better reading on what you're talking about and how you're portraying your message. On voicemail, If someone leaves a voicemail, you need to speak slowly and repeat your name and your phone number, and have a brief message, usually 60 seconds or long, or shorter. If you have voicemail, you need to check it regularly, because if you have a message, you need to send it within 24 to 48 hours is generally the courtesy. Nonverbal is the next one I'm going to talk about. Nonverbal is gestures, smiling, waving, and then there's body language. It's how you're giving yourself off when you relay a message. It's your facial expressions, it's your posture, it's how your appearance, your grooming style, it's all of those things together. Generally, nonverbal communication is non-intentional. It's not something that we think about. It's not something that we're trying to do. Or it can be intentional. It just kind of depends on the situation. And it's generally different between cultures. There are some things that you would think to do in one culture that is frowned upon in another. And generally, nonverbal is the communication that receives the most attention, and it can be influenced by any given situation. Guidelines for preparing an email. First off, you always need to provide a subject line. It tells the reader what they need to expect in the email. Otherwise, if you don't put that, a lot of times it could end up being deleted or put in the junk mail. When you prepare your email, always be clear and concise, and write it with the reader's point of view in mind. Avoid slang and technical words, and always be courteous and concrete. And before you send any email, always proofread before sending it. The advantages of email. Obviously, email is fast and efficient. When you send an email, it's there within minutes. It reduces the cost. Email is virtually free, except for internet. It doesn't cost anything. When you send an email, it avoids small talk and it gets to the point. It's generally why most workplaces use email instead of writing letters or having meetings. If you need a quick question, you just shoot someone an email. And obviously, email is eco-friendly. It reduces paper waste and helps the environment. The disadvantages of email. Email is emotionless. You can't understand someone's emotions or read their tone of voice through an email. You don't know if someone's sarcastic or if they're upset or they're happy. You can't always read their emotion. And email is known for misinterpretations. So it's very careful. It's important to be very careful with your wording. Email is prone to spam and viruses, so always put virus protection on your computer. And email, the last one that you need to be careful about is vulnerability. Email is vulnerable because people can hack into your email. People can get onto your phone and get into your email. Email could be accidentally sent to the wrong person or get into the hands of the wrong person. Technical email. A technical email is an email that has technical phrases and words. So avoid using that because many people won't understand. Be very detailed when giving instructions. Make sure it's step by step. If you're giving a technical email, to someone and you're using instructions, you have to be even more precise because it can create a big problem later down the road. And always examine the problem from every point of view. And last, put yourself in the reader's shoes and make sure it's clear what you're saying and what you're portraying. Personal or professional? The first question you ask yourself, is it personal or professional? Is this a personal email? Is it to your friends, to your family? Is it just, or is it professional? Is it to your boss? Is it to the doctor? Is it to the insurance company? Are you trying to get something done? You need to figure out what kind of email it is, and always use correct etiquette once you figure out whether it's personal or professional. Never disclose too much personal or confidential information in your email, and if in doubt, it's always best to use a professional stance. Legal and ethical implications. Never ever include inappropriate or illegal content in an email. It can come back to bite you. Failing to preserve or destroy email messages is in violation of security rules. And the ECPA is Electronic Communications Privacy Act, which prevents unauthorized access to private communications. Text communications. It's growing rapidly. Text communications are fast and efficient like email, and they're generally informal. They're widely used within the teen and the 20-something group, but more and more people are using it, so it's growing popularity. And it's known for using acronyms and abbreviations. So sometimes when you're sending a text message, people might not understand what you're saying. So you have to be careful when using those abbreviations. Last but not least is visual communications. Visual communications is art, graphic design, charts, photos, anything that you can see visually, anything that you can communicate through visual matter is visual communication, and it's known to be very effective as well. Through all these things, the media can be influenced. Media can influence these different communications. There's Facebook and Twitter, magazines, the news, different celebrities, politicians, and television. Many different influences influence how we communicate in our day-to-day lives. And so it's always important to be aware of your surroundings and how your media influences you and the people around you. Another thing to consider is age and diversity. We're a global society nowadays, and so you need to think about your generation. How you talk to your friends and your family is different than how you talk to your boss, and how you talk to a 2-year-old is different than how you talk to the elderly. So you have to think about the age. You also have to think about culture. How we talk over here is a little different than how the Europeans talk, or other areas, other cultures. It's also known that men and women communicate differently, and so you need to take that into consideration. Lastly, you have to consider education level. A high schooler or an elementary student communicates differently than a professor or a CEO or someone who is high up in their company. So you have to always consider your audience and who you're talking to. To wrap things up, I would recommend using the 7 C's of communication. These are just a few tips on how to communicate with all the different types of communications. And it's just something to think about and to be aware of when you're communicating. And all of these are simple to remember. So we call it the 7 C's of communication. There's completeness, conciseness, consideration, clarity, concreteness, courtesy, and correctness. So if you want a few tips on how to communicate, use this tool. Thank you.